Welcome back to Raw Talks with Dr. Cami and Dr. Brandee. And we are excited this month to talk about some stuff that we've been hearing a lot from our patients and our clients. And Brandee, I'm going to let you kind of just take over. I know we've been discussing people who use the phrase at least. Um, and yeah, let's just dive into what you think that comes from, where, what are you hearing it in what context, and see where the conversation goes.
Well, I think like with anything, it could be helpful, but it could also be harmful, right? And so people might say something like, well, at least I'm not beating you. At least I'm not getting beat, and I'm only, emotionally being abused. And I heard that a lot in law enforcement when I would go to calls. But I also hear it a lot in therapy, and I hear it when I'm just having conversations. And I'm like, okay, it's a beautiful phrase in a sense of like, okay, can you find what you're grateful for? But at the same time, you can have a blessing and still want more, right? Or expect more. So I find that a lot of people are using it to justify not wanting progression, right?
Hmm, interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. So, do you have any examples of when you've heard that phrase yourself?
I think I hear it in a different sense, which is interesting. More people who are attempting progression, but they're not fully understanding the idea of not being a victim anymore, or like to taking their power and taking their dissatisfaction with themselves or with their lives and doing anything about it. It's more like, well, I'm attempting gratitude. Like I work in a hospital setting. And so it's like, well, at least I don't have cancer. Or at least, it's like um, trying to process our pain, our trauma, and the stuff that we inherently have as humans, because the range of pain is widespread. And instead of embracing the pain, it's like, well, I can deal with this because I don't have that.
Yes, I call it the silver lining, which I think is has a great attribute to it, right? Because you're looking at your life going, what could be worse, right? And I think that can be beautiful in helping you cope, but it could also become a hindrance when you're going, um, I want to progress, but my partner doesn't, but at least I have this. And it's true, right? I think I did a quote the other day was, I can feel like I have blessings but want more, right?
Mhm.
Because at least is, well, at least you can pay your bills. Sure, I can pay my bills, but I'm constantly stressed about paying them, so I would like to have more abundance. So if you use that at least, or I'm grateful for that I can cover my bills, yeah, that's beautiful, but it can also be used as a way to stay stagnant, right? And so I hear that phrase a lot in a way that it has that silver lining, but it also is leaning towards not doing more because I don't want to be ungrateful.
I see, yeah. And that was really a cultural, based off of like how we grew up. Maybe I'm not sure if it's shifting yet. My kids are too young to really know what this next generation is too much like as far as that goes. But when you come from this idea of, well, there's kids in Africa that are starving, it's
Mhm.
like, well, you're not allowed to want more because you're supposed to be kind of carrying around the shame and the guilt, because we didn't, our parents didn't know how to process that. And those are traumas that we all are supposed to have, and they're fine. They're not fine, but they're inherent. Like we all get to experience them, but we have to work through those traumas. And when we don't know, we're just like, this is normal and you should be carrying this on. You should be grateful for what you have, and you don't want too much because that's greedy, that's sinful, that's ungodly, that's all this negativity around wanting too much. But when you start getting into the healing world and you start understanding that like everything that you want is actually calling to you, manifestation world, all of these things, it's kind of a hard concept to wrap your head around because you've been programmed to think, well, if less is more, if I can just survive, right? So a good householder title of like being able to pay my bills and just enough. Just enough is fine. Anything more than that can be a problem and you shouldn't want that.
Yeah, and that's exactly what I want to talk about. So
Mm-hmm.
how to balance the having gratitude and a blessing and being grateful for what you have, but still knowing it's okay to want to keep progressing without that phrase being, I mean, I tell my kids, you should be grateful for the things you do have, but I also have to be aware to say, but it doesn't mean you can't want more,
Mm-hmm.
right? And where is the line between greed? Um, who dictates what that is? I know everyone's different. However, it's like, okay, so let's say you're in a relationship and um, a lot of people try to understand what their roles are within, whether it's a partnership like you and I, which is I would consider a friendship, love relationship, husband with my husband, or like my coworkers or my employees. That's all relationships, right? And we have to be careful not to use the phrase at least to try to make someone grateful for something that maybe you can't give them more of. So
Mm.
one of the examples I would have is in my past relationship, just before I had gotten divorced, my ex-husband said to me, um, well, at least I don't beat you. And I was like, I don't know what that has anything to do with us not being compatible, right? So I should stay because you don't beat me, but yet we're not progressing together. How we see the world is different, how we communicate is different. He's a great guy. I feel like I'm a great woman. And, of course, we have everyone else's opinions on, when you should stay together or not. But again, I'm not telling you about their opinions, just my own. And it's like, just because you don't beat me doesn't mean I'm fulfilled. And if
Yeah,
I
it's
tell
not a
you,
justification.
yes, and that's what I feel like people are using it as a justification. Dr. Cami, you're saying is so perfect. It's like, but that's what it is, justification not to progress.
Mm.
You know, and
Yeah.
I feel like we need a pause, and when we feel like saying, well, at least I don't blank, um, at least I don't nag at you all the time. Maybe to go, okay, what does this person need from me? Can I give them more? Am I using that at least as a way to make myself feel better on both sides? So how do you balance this phrase, at least?
Well, I would comment that it can be used as another aspect of self-awareness. It's another tool. So when it comes up, whether you're saying that internally or externally to someone else, if your goals are self-progression and life progression, right? You want a better life and you find yourself saying these things, then you get the opportunity to self-analyze how you're using it in what context. Is it justification? Is it halting progression? Is it just trying to manage the pain that you're in because it's like overwhelming, and maybe that's a tool that helps you feel like, okay, I can handle this because at least it's not more, or whatever it is, however it's coming up for you. There's an opportunity to reflect, like, um, for example, like I have two toddlers who don't like to sleep. One doesn't like to go to sleep and the other one doesn't like to stay asleep. So by the time I get one to sleep, the other, and I lay down, it's like they know as soon as mom's like falling asleep, the other one wakes up. And last night was a pretty rough night where it was probably, from 1 to 4, he was up and he wiggles and if I'm not rocking, like rolling his butt or like his back or
Mhm.
touching him, he wakes up crying and he's screaming, and I'm exhausted. And so there's a lot of internal dialogue going on because you feel like, you're tired, you're irritable, you're being like, and then there's guilt. Like, am I selfish for wanting this and not wanting to snuggle them? They're only little for a little while. It's
Mhm.
like, well, at least I don't work tomorrow, or whatever, however it comes up.
Yeah.
And so for me, it was like an opportunity to self-reflect and go, okay, I'm not mad at this situation. And I'm mad because, and I could have this dialogue of like, and I went all biblical because that's where because I was just reading about Job and,
Mhm.
and like he got everything taken from him, like boils all over his, all this stuff. And I was like, you know what I'm mad about? I'm mad about those two mother knuckers that I've never met who decided they were smarter than God and created original sin. And now I live in a broken world and I have to like yada, yada, yada. And I was like making me kind of laugh about it, but like going through that aspect of things and like really kind of figuring out what was going on internally. And then I could, be like, okay, I'm not mad at you, but I'm very frustrated with you right now. And just help me kind of get through it in a different way without just yeah, completely blowing up all night, which did happen a few times. Cause like, okay, fine, I'm walking around, we'll do this. Like I'll rock you and walk. And then I stepped in cat vomit and I was like, sir, after another. But it's just we have those moments and they're not going to go away. They're not going to go away. We're going to be constantly dealing with pain and frustration and jealousy and this the scales forever. But so it's a self-reflective tool of like how is this bringing me into a separation of what I'm experiencing. It's an experience. It's not all up in me, but it's something that I have to like move through and experience.
And I love it because I think all phrases, all concepts, all emotions can be used as tools. Because when we do that all or nothing thinking versus believing in all things and no things, then you put a restriction on that phrase. You know what I mean? Whether it's you should be grateful for, um, at least, or I'm angry and I shouldn't be, is that self-reflection that you said. I think it's important is going, okay, why am I using this phrase? Am I using it to help me get through this moment? Am I helping it to help using it to manipulate someone? Am I using it? And that's the self-awareness. And I think what's been happening for me is I've been observing people use at least. And it's just, I initially, when someone said to me, um, so I was like, oh gosh, I kind of wish my husband would do a little bit more, around the house. And they're like, well, at least blank. And I'm like, so you're telling me I should be okay because at least this other thing isn't happening, but why can't I expect more? Right. And then there's that phrase, well, maybe they just don't have the capacity. And I'm like, but what gives you the belief that they don't? And then I start to realize how much people start off with the belief that a person doesn't have the capacity versus realizing they actually do have the capacity. And maybe they were taught that they don't. So I feel like
Mm-hmm.
there's this vicious cycle, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so I've been in this observing state for probably 8 weeks and witnessing, observing my behavior, my responses to comments and still having and witnessing why the other person might say certain things and letting them be their own person. And instead of debating, which I normally don't do, I discuss, meaning I like to hear what is this at least? Is it a silver lining for you? Because I can understand, like I can say that in my head all day. I can go, well, I'm glad I'm not in. I can have it worse. I couldn't have a man that beats me. And my husband's amazing. He's emotionally, physically, he's amazing, right? So but that phrase I've started as I'm observing can be really restrictive. But that's not the only phrase. I think it's anything you should be grateful for. And I agree. I feel like a lot of people are losing gratitude. There's a lack of gratitude, right? But what we experience in 2026 is completely different than what we experienced in 1980, right? And the sense of gratitude has shifted. You can't tell your kids, there's starving kids somewhere else. I mean, there's starving kids in our same neighborhoods, right? But if they're not experiencing it, they don't correlate to it. because they're not in the experience. So what are
Mm,
different ways we can teach them gratitude? What are different ways for us to teach, our kids and ourselves not to settle and just be okay with nothing or being okay not progressing, right? I
yeah.
just kind of went a
No,
little
I
bit.
like that. I was thinking while you were talking, like, well, when is it used as a positive? When, like, if I'm too complainy. We tend to do that, right? So personality reflects personality, and spirit reflects spirit. So when we talk, we tend to go spirit to spirit. But when personalities, it's like, how are you doing? Oh my gosh, it's terrible. I didn't sleep last night. I stepped in cat vomit. It was just awful. Like, blah, 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 blah. And then someone else like, oh my gosh, I know I've been there, and my day was like this, and it's just this like back and forth of like the yuck of life. And so when can that phrase be like, well, at least you didn't step in cat vomit at 4 o'clock in the morning before you could fall asleep. And they're like, yeah, you're right. That's, I'm going to actually, okay, cool. And so it's like, you know,
Yeah.
can you, can you self-reflect in the moment again and hear that and be like, you know what? Yeah, that's true. You can still want things to be better and like be grateful. It's not a dual thing. It can be both and. It's like, what's the third force here? There's always three pieces to it. It's like, yes, I'm grateful. Yes, I want more in the context of life or in my day or in my finances or whatever it is. Like, yes, I have enough to pay bills. Yes, I want more. Like, you can do both. And the at least, like you said, it feels limiting. It feels like it's an energetic cutoff. And so, if that's the case, that's where that self reflection comes in and say, okay, well, I have the habit of using these words. And I think we talked last time about how powerful words can be.
Mhm.
And so, if that's what's coming up for you, where it's like, well, at least, and then you just block it and you don't try to pursue, it's like, well, okay, can you hold both of those truths in your hands and move forward?
Yeah. And I think it goes back to what I've been really focusing on is conscious way of living, right? I'm working on the whole Imagine It tour, and then I'm moving into my own tour called Walking with the Gods. But all it's about is how to be that perspective and live in the world consciously, so you could be of the experience, not in the experience. Hold on, how do you say that? So you're not being taken by the world, but you're experiencing the world. Right?
Yeah.
Because it is easy, like as empathetic beings, to get pulled into someone else's energy and to start to treat them as such. Right? If someone doesn't feel worthy and they're like, and you're like, oh, well, at least, you could have it worse. Like who couldn't have it worse? Every moment could be worse. So yes, we should be grateful for the moment, but doesn't mean we shouldn't strive for better. It doesn't mean we shouldn't have expectations. And I've heard that too, is, you shouldn't have expectations. It's like, what, what? We should have expectations. If we're all gods and goddesses or we're divine beings and we're these as consciousnesses and we're working through this experience, expectations help us get motivated to be the greater version of ourselves. Now, there's a difference, right? If I give you my expectation of myself and put it onto you, but if I say, hey, what are your expectations, Dr. Cami, for yourself? And you tell me your expectations, I'm going to support that. I might say, well, I expect that you can do better than this. As a boss, I expect my employees to do good work. I expect them to
Yeah.
be respectful. I expect them to be kind. I expect them to grow, right? And so when people are like, you shouldn't have expectations because, you're making your expectations high, well, okay, then don't work for me. And if you ask my employees, I would like to say they would say my expectations aren't too high because I'm reading the room, right? And if you can't do something, the question is why not? And if it's because you don't want to do it, okay, that's a whole different story. But if it's because you don't have the tools, let's get you the tools.
Yeah. I think that a lot of times when I hear common phrases too, I try to think outside the box. Like, what's the context of that? And maybe even looking back to like, what was the context that it was developed in?
Hmm.
But like, for don't have like expectations or don't have high expectations. It makes me think of when we're like moving through the three forces, three phases of flow state, and that surrender piece that we're not good at. Like we want to control what the results look like, and we can't. We can control the work that we do to get the results that we think we want, but you have to let go of what the outcome actually shows up as. So, like if I want this feeling of a relationship, I want a marriage that feels like this, I can't look at every little tiny detail of another person and say, this are the things that they have to have. And like, that's only what I'm going to go for. I can say, if I want to someone who's athletic, that means they're going to be active. So I probably should work on my fitness levels so that I can find someone and keep up with them. Or if I want someone who's spiritual or religious or whatever, like then I should probably develop that within myself. And then it's like you're just creating this force field of attraction, but you can't determine how they're going to show up or who they're going to be. And you can't, like, all of the faults that they're going to have, because they're going to have their negatives too, or things that drive you bonkers, but you're driving them nuts too. Don't forget that. um, and so it's like there's that like, well, I was really shooting for this. I really wanted this job. I really wanted my painting to look this way, and it's not that way. So now I'm mad or disappointed, or I didn't get that job, but I got this other one, or however it shows up. But there's this letting go of how it's supposed to show up for you. And so that's where that expectation piece, it's like, I don't have expectations for the details, but I have expectations for the feeling of my life.
Yeah. And that is beautiful. And I think when people say, I think you hit it again, Dr. Cami, you're doing amazing today. And so when people say, at least, it takes away your dream. It could, right? So if you're like, oh, I have this dream that, I want my relationship to look like this, or I want my center to look like this, or I want to help people this way. So it goes, well, at least you have a job. And you're like, wait a minute. Yes, I am grateful for my job, or I am grateful for my relationship, or I'm grateful for uh, my center, but it doesn't mean I can't dream it into what I want the overall feeling to be, right? And so
Mhm.
it goes back to self-awareness. And then one of my biggest things I guess in some ways are preaching is the importance of being an observer and the importance of being a witness. Because oftentimes we observe someone's life and go, oh, I wish they would just look at the good things they have. If I had that good, I wouldn't be complaining. I mean, I see couples for therapy all the time, and in law enforcement, you can see the very negative relationships, and you're always going to be grateful for what you have, but should not stop you from wanting it to be better, because that's what progression is. And so when, like you said, when these phrases are hitting you and you're talking to a friend, or even for me, for my patients, for my clients, when I'm hearing that, well, I know at least blank, I have to say, can we pause just for a minute? What is your dream? What do you want to manifest? And what are you worried? Because again, there's this accountability. Maybe they do want to manifest. So let's say a couple gets married and one wants 2 kids and one wants 3 kids, right? So we can easily tell the one that wants 3 kids, well, at least he wants two, or they want to, it could be he or she, right? But if that person within them is like, no, I know I'm supposed to have three, how do you at least that? There's compromise in relationships, but you have to accepting that gap that might happen with that compromise, right?
Yeah.
And I've seen this time and time. Normally, the person who wants, well, I guess it goes both ways, where one or the other will sacrifice, but they have to accept whatever they lost in that sacrifice. If they can accept that, then the resentment and everything like that will not come. But if they don't, and these at least I think can diminish. I also think it can help, and let's look at the greater picture sometimes. So I like the idea of what you said is looking at it as a tool. So we are responsible for using that word or phrases with somebody else or ourselves and being able to ask our whys. Why did I just say to Dr. Cami, well, at least, you have 2 kids and you get to cuddle with them. Instead of going, man, that must be frustrating. Because we all know
Yeah.
you love your kids.
Yeah.
I in my head, like when my same last night was crazy and I did not step in cat pee. I throw up. But my kids woke up and one was kneeing me and punched me and the other one was like on top of me and I was like, oh my gosh, I can't sleep. And of course in my brain I go, this is temporary
Mhm.
and I'm grateful. But there's nights I get up and I go to the couch or I get up and I take my kids and put them back to bed because I just can't deal with the kicking because I'm human. And in that scenario, I'm not going to at least it. Oh, I guess I could say at least I can take him to the couch.
Yeah, it does. I mean, like I said, it does help because sometimes I do use it as a tool. Like,
Yeah,
I have friends who have lost their kids,
yeah.
and I can say at least, you know, like, and I feel for them, and then I reach out spiritually and I just wrap them up because, like, oh my gosh. But, it can be a tool to help you deal with the pain at the time too. But I think that I
Yeah.
like the idea of, assessing the dream. So, like, is it feeling like it's limited, and what is your dream? Because if it's something that keeps coming up, then you have to really kind of look at, is this a message from my spirit? Is this my purpose? Like, am I supposed to be following this? And if you're listening to us talk, then you're likely already within this realm of like self-development and finding your purpose and reconnecting with your spirit and reconnecting, like finding some kind of way to cope with being human. And so, maybe the current situation that you're in, the current job, the current whatever, is not where you need to be, and you're getting this as a push. And we've been taught, be grateful for what you have because you don't want to be greedy. And it's like, well, how am I supposed to grow if I don't want more? Being greedy, am I hurting someone else with this? I want it. Is it hurting anyone else? If not, then, look into it in a different lens. And that's all that we talk about, is how do we reform the mirror that we're looking through and say, okay, well, and if you're hearing it from other people, we I think I can say we both believe, and this is a spiritual concept as well, is like your life is a mirror that's reflecting things back at you. And so when you're finding something frustrating in someone else, if you're finding motivation in someone else, it's a tool to look back. And because the more you look at how you can utilize it within yourself, then you have the comprehension to talk with other people about it. And so when someone's like, well, at least I have a job, you can say, yeah, and that's great. Now let's work on the next step so that you can get into something bigger and better.
And I think it hit something for me when you said that because I think that sometimes we put our own excuses in the way. We at least it. And maybe when someone calls, someone else out on, or meet us like, oh, well, at least this. And you're like, ugh, but not at least, but then you're doing it yourself. Right? So sometimes we diminish ourselves with using those same because we're taught, don't want more, don't become greedy. And 100%, we've seen people fall from greed. So we understand that extreme, right? So we have to know in what context, like you said, we're using it. So we're using it as a way not to progress and as to stay comfortable and to not do the work. Are we lying to ourselves? Well, at least this is happening, you know, when it could be better. We have to look at, okay, how do we progress the situation? And if we're in a good place, then of course, be grateful. I mean, I wake up every morning and I say 10 things I'm grateful for, right? And it doesn't dismiss that I want things to be better.
Mhm. Yeah, and
So
one
yeah.
great tool too is like, instead of saying at least because it feels limiting, again, we want to change the context, change the the whole idea around it, and maybe try, isn't it wonderful that?
Yeah.
Isn't it
Love it.
wonderful that I got to be up all night and snuggle my kids? Isn't it wonderful that it was raining all morning and so nobody really wanted to do anything but sit around and watch movies, so I got to sleep in? Isn't it wonderful that my husband got to sleep last night so that he could get up with the kids and I could go back to bed? And you want to go and go and go and try to get 10 of those at least, and it will start to shift the situation for you. instead of limiting the possibilities and cutting you off. Well, at least I have a roof over my head. It's
Yeah.
not the 2-story, 4-bedroom, 2-bathroom home that I want, but at least I've got something. And then you cut off and you're not moving forward, right?
Right. So
We
I can be
want to
grateful.
shift.
I think it's also equally important to, as humans, to say and maybe start your day with, okay, uh, it's okay that I was frustrated last night.
Yeah.
It was okay that I was frustrated that I walked in and kept throw up. I was okay. I was frustrated that, however, I'm also,
Hold two truths.
yes. And I
It's
think that's,
not one or the other.
I think we are duality, like that we're supposed to hold those. And the world tries to teach us all or nothing thinking when it's supposed to be all and nothing because they
Yeah.
both exist in the realm of all things, all possibilities,
And that's the
right?
three. You need that third realm.
Yeah.
You need that third piece. And we're stuck in this dual,
Yeah.
good,
This either
bad,
or.
right,
Yeah.
wrong.
Gosh, like
But
last night I was told I was going through some type of transition and I was hearing things from different like dimensions and different things going on because we're not just linear. And I think we've talked about that. We're multidimensional beings, not just duality. There is duality, but that's too simple in some ways, right? It's not just black and white. Like you said, there's a third, there's a middle pillar. So I think we're okay to challenge ourselves. We're okay to if you're triggered because someone says at least, or you're catching yourself saying at least, why? And that's not just that phrase, it's any phrase. Even the other phrases you said, as I'm grateful for, it's okay to be frustrated. But I like to say does, I think Dr. Cami can speak to this more, is when we speak gratitude, it really does change your brain to see more gratitude. If you go to sleep every night before you go to bed and think about all the things you're not grateful for, then you wake up not feeling grateful. So biologically, it really does affect you, but we shouldn't avoid how we feel, but we do want to have a solution to get to the positive before we end our day and hopefully get to it before we even start our day.
hmm yeah, and that takes practice. So it's in the moment as well. It's there's a poem, and now I can't remember. I probably talked about it on here before, but it's like what we're doing is we are learning and recognizing ourselves. And I always contribute it to potty training, but there's a really great poem that talks about this. And she's like, okay, so I walk down the street, day one, I walk down the street, there's a hole, I don't see it, I fall in it, it's dark, I'm lost, it takes me forever to get out, but I finally make my way out. Day two, I walk down the street, there's a hole, I fall into it. It's not my fault. It's still new to me, but I get out faster. Day three, I walk down the street, I fall in the hole. It is my fault because I know it's there, but I get out really fast. Day four, I walk down the street, I walk around the hole. Day five, I take a different path. And so what we're doing is we're developing these awareness tools. So it's like potty training. So you have to learn, I peed on the floor. Then you have to start recognizing I am peeing on the floor. Then you recognize I have to pee on the floor, or I have to pee, not on the floor. I have to pee there. And then you go to the bathroom before you leave the house. And so what you're doing is I did it again. I said at least, I felt the limitations. I'm doing okay, cool. You're recognizing it though.
Yeah.
Then you're in the moment doing it. It's coming up and you recognize that you're saying it to yourself or to someone else. Then you start to realize like, oh, I I can hear it's like it's in there, but it's not as strong. And I can start to shift that language. And then you shift the language and you shift the behavior and you shift the energy behind it. So it's it's a progress that we have to do, and we have to start from the yuck and make our way back. So if you're feeling like, you keep doing something, then you're still in the peeing on the floor phase, and that's fine. Everybody gets out of it. So just recognize that, give yourself grace, and then just make your way through. Yeah.
I love it. I think it's a beautiful way to wrap up our podcast today. Is there anything else you want to add?
I think that we did a great job, and I think that we could probably talk a whole time on greed and dive
Yes,
into the different aspects of that concept too. So we'd
I
love to
think
do that
that
next
would,
time.
I would love to do that too, talk more about greed because it is something that limits, it's a limitation factor because we're taught almost in a sense not to have abundance because if you do, you're greedy. So what does it look like? What does it mean? So I agree with you, Dr. Cami. Let's talk about that again or deeper. Our
Yeah.
next.
So if you want that comment or that topic, comment, like, subscribe, do all the things.
Yes, please, and share with those you think would like our podcast. Raw
Yeah.
tots.
Share it with all your friends who say at least.
Someone triggers you, like, hold on, you need to listen to this podcast. I might share it with, I don't know who yet, but I will.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right, you guys have an amazing day, and until next time, please keep growing.